Tonight, trees down, roofs ripped off and streets flooded. The bomb cyclone lashes the state's coast. Hello, I'm Nick Dole. This is ABC News. The federal government promises nationally consistent working with children checks as a second man is charged by detectives investigating a Melbourne childcare worker. Two 15-year-old boys charged over shootings in Sydney's west. 6 million Qantas customers potentially caught up in a data breach cyber attack. And Alex de Minaur opens his Wimbledon campaign with an impressive straight set victory. Several emergency warnings are still in place across New South Wales as the state deals with the latest round of wild weather. Thousands of homes are still without power, while some residents on the south coast have been cut off by flooding. The SES says it's answered more than 1,300 calls today, with another night of rough conditions still to come.
More than 30,000 households woke up without power this morning. It's easy to see why. Wind gusts of up to 100 kilometers an hour wreaked havoc across the state, with fallen branches and uprooted trees triggering huge numbers of calls to the SES.
There were thousands, literally thousands of transport, train, SES and electricity crews that worked through the night.
On the south coast, around 200 properties have been affected by flooding at Bureau Lake.
This is the worst event that we've experienced.
It's caused quite a lot of damage to the houses. Our building is okay, but yeah, unfortunately our power is off. So we're going to lose a lot of produce.
Other places are struggling to get produce in. Currarong's 400 residents have been partially cut off since this road behind me flooded overnight. It's the only lifeline for this community, with several elderly people who rely on it for groceries, medicine and more.
We don't have a store, we don't have a doctor or any other facilities, so if you can't get through, you're stuck.
One woman there didn't want to drive through it today, but had to because she had to get to work and just take the risk. But that creek's running in the way that the SES says we shouldn't drive through.
It's a message that was repeated again today.
There have been multiple car crashes, and we're asking people to please take care on the roads.
An evacuation order is still in place for parts of Wombrel on the Central Coast, where erosion is threatening beachside properties. Waves reached up to 13 meters in some places, with Kiama's famous blowhole putting on a show. But not all sightseers were so lucky.
We're trying to see kangaroos, but there's no kangaroos today.
Just the damage from a storm that's been giving everyone a devil of a time. Nabil Al-Nashar, ABC News.
Well, let's go live now to Nabil Al-Nashar in Kiama. Nabil, has the danger passed there?
Well, there's been heavy rains. We've been pelted with heavy rain over the past few hours. It's eased up a bit now, but there's still some really strong winds, Nick, strong enough to bring down trees and cause serious property damage. There's still currently flood warnings in Nowra, just 30 kilometers southwest of here, and in St. George's Basin, just 50 kilometers south of here. Further up north, there's still a lot of people without power. Power has mostly been restored down here at the south coast, but over 9,000 people still are without power in areas surrounding Gosford, Wyong, and the entrance, also around Kurrambong, Mandalong, and further up west of Nelson Bay. 2,000 emergency crews, including SES, have been responding throughout the day to many different jobs. Over 1,300 calls for assistance across the state just since this morning, and their advice remains the same. Stay clear and avoid floodwater, rivers and creeks. And if you do get stuck, call for help.
Good advice, Nabil Al-Nashar in Kiama. Thanks for that. While there has been some damage in Sydney, the city largely survived unscathed today. Let's bring in Digby Worthmuller, who's live at Sydney Harbour now. Digby, is the weather easing up?
Well, despite Sydney experiencing the heaviest July rainfall in 3 years, it seems that we're through the worst of it as that low pressure system weakened today. In Manly, it was the perfect storm for surfers today, with many taking to the waters. Other areas off Sydney's coast also saw waves of up to 10 metres. But while these conditions ease tonight and into tomorrow, officials are still urging caution. Water for New South Wales predicts that the Warragamba Dam will experience a moderate overflow overnight, and in Cronulla, a small portable building was blown off a building site and into the path of traffic this morning, while the city's rail network experienced significant delays and disruptions as a result of a number of downed trees. The State Emergency Service has currently 8 flood warnings in place across the city. So look, Nick, there's certainly still some cause for people to remain alert tonight.
OK, Digby Worthmuller live at Sydney Harbour. Thanks for that. Let's check in with our meteorologist Tom Saunders now. And Tom, rain has returned to Sydney tonight and a warning continues for dangerous winds.
Nick, while it's safe to say the worst is behind us, there is still a sting in the tail of this weather system. The 2 main centres of this deep low are rotating clockwise around a common axis, and this southern node will make a final pass up the coast tonight. That follows a more intense centre last night, which generated a wind gust of 130 kilometres per hour at Guatemala, equivalent to the strength of wind from a Category 2 tropical cyclone. Port Kembla recorded a maximum wave of 13 metres, while the top 24-hour rain total, 224 millimetres at Ulladulla, a July record for the town. And it's not quite over just yet. Another massive thick cloud has pushed back onto the coastline. And on the radar, widespread rain returned to the south this afternoon, and it's now spreading north through Sydney. However, it's the wind and surf which is still a concern. Another burst of damaging gusts for the coastal fringe overnight, along with the northern ranges. And a warning continues for coastal erosion, maximum waves still exceeding 10 metres off the south coast. And I'll have full details on when the storm will abate at the end of the bulletin.
Police investigating a Melbourne childcare worker accused of child sex crimes have charged a second man with serious offences. Detectives will allege 36-year-old Michael Simon Wilson from Hoppers Crossing was known to childcare worker Joshua Dale Brown, who's facing scores of child sex charges. And a warning, this story contains some disturbing details.
In April, detectives investigating the alleged rape of a teenage boy descended on Hoppers Crossing man Michael Simon Wilson. But in charging him, they allegedly made a grim discovery. Police who examined his devices will allege that they found a link between Wilson and Joshua Dale Brown, which led them to arrest the Melbourne childcare worker. Brown is now facing more than 70 child sex offences against 8 children over his time at the Creative Garden Early Learning Centre at Point Cook in Melbourne's western suburbs. The investigation has prompted a massive public health response, with authorities urging 1,200 children to get tested for sexually transmitted diseases.
As soon as I thought about it and they said it was Joshua Brown, I was like, I know exactly who that is.
Point Cook mother Jane, not her real name, was among the parents to receive a text message from the health department urging her 2 children to be tested.
I teared up. I'm just like, I feel sick to my stomach. This is just not okay. They're children, they're little babies.
At drop-off this morning, parents with children who weren't directly affected were grappling with the situation.
My first reaction as a parent was disgust, to be honest. You know, when you take your child to daycare, you'd expect it to be one of the safest environments.
I'm a little concerned, but I also trust the centre and the management.
I guess everyone's kind of asking the same question, how does that happen?
It's a question the Victorian government is trying to answer, announcing an urgent 6-week review into childcare safety that will consider if CCTV should be installed at centres around the state.
I know Victorian parents are feeling angry and deeply distressed by these allegations. I feel that too. And that's why my government will take every action possible, as soon as possible, to strengthen safety standards.
The government was warned by the state's ombudsman in 2022 to urgently strengthen its working with Children's Check, identified as among the weakest in the country.
The government failed to act. We have a now glaring hole in our Working with Children's Check system.
Trust in a system broken by alleged abhorrent acts. Danny Tran, ABC News, Melbourne.
The federal government is promising to nationalise working with children checks by the end of the year as it races to respond to the shocking allegations. But in what's being described as a reckoning, the government is under pressure to act quickly to restore trust in a troubled sector. Here's National Affairs correspondent Jane Norman.
In a problem-plagued sector,
families are paying the ultimate price.
That's been investigated, exposed and examined.
I would say it's a house of horrors.
Melbourne is just the latest in a long line.
I was so panicked yesterday looking on that list to see if any of my kids have been affected in any of these centres, and
Cabinet Minister Claire O'Neil summing up the anguish of parents who place their trust in childcare workers every day.
They would be bloody angry. And I know that they're angry because one of those parents is a friend of mine and her two little girls are directly affected by this.
Jason Clare revealing he was informed by authorities a week ago before affected parents. The federal government responsible for funding the multi-billion-dollar sector.
This is serious and it requires serious action.
Action is already being taken. From September, childcare workers will be banned from using personal mobile phones and devices inside centres. The timeframe for reporting sexual and physical assault will be slashed from 7 days to 24 hours. And proposed new laws would strip funding from providers that fail to meet national safety standards. Ruling out yet another review, the Education Minister says the government has plenty of material to work with, including a 10-year-old Royal Commission recommendation for nationally consistent working with children checks, now promising that'll be in place by year's end.
It's taken too long to do the work necessary to make sure that our working with children check system is up to scratch.
This is a moment of reckoning. It is a serious moment of reckoning.
Advocates, tired of what they see as a piecemeal approach, are demanding deeper changes, starting with an independent childcare commission to provide oversight of a sector governed by a complex web of regulations. The government is open to considering that. In the short term, on top of the work being done, education ministers are looking at tougher penalties for providers who breach safety standards, as well as the use of CCTV cameras in some centres. If child safety is the priority they say it is, now's the time to demonstrate it. Jane Norman, ABC News, Canberra.
The New South Wales Premier says he'll introduce new laws to prevent people from appealing if their working with children check is denied. The move came after media reports showed that some sex offenders and other criminals had been granted the crucial clearance by appealing to the New South Wales Civil and Administrative Appeals Tribunal.
I think it makes a mockery of the working with children's check. It's a loophole that cannot exist, and the information I've got this morning is that we're going to have to move legislation to block that loophole to ensure that if a working with children's check has been denied, it stays denied.
And we'll have more on this coming up on 7:30 as terrified parents speak out.
I think I was just shocked. Like, has my child been involved in this?
What more do we have to do before someone's going to act? Isn't it enough that 1,200 children, are now having to be tested for STDs?
I shouldn't really be finding out off the TV. I've lost a lot of trust in others and in childcare providers right now.
2 15-year-old boys have been charged over 2 shootings in Sydney's West. One of the attacks was on a home mistakenly targeted as a mother and 4 children slept inside. Police allege the teens were hired by organised criminals.
The charred remains of a vehicle and forensic officers scanning for clues. These were the scenes near a Maryland's family home in March, after a mother and her 4 young children were mistakenly targeted in a suspected gangland shooting.
We allege that some of the bullets travelled through the premises into the bedrooms and the bedheads whilst the victims were sleeping, and one of these bullets narrowly missed a 5-year-old child by about 20 centimetres.
Police say the house was sprayed with 28 bullets from a semi-automatic weapon. They now allege the gunman was a teenage boy. and that a second teenager helped him flee before destroying the alleged getaway car.
And we allege that these 15-year-olds simply took this action, this job, to target these people for financial gain.
It's alleged the boys were hired to carry out 2 gangland shootings, including a second attack on a granny flat in Guildford West in April. The 26-year-old woman inside wasn't injured, but police warn the shootings could also risk the lives of the teens and their families through reprisal attacks.
They are committing these offences on behalf of organised crime networks. They will retaliate and they will continue to look for them until such time they find them.
Detectives fear crime gangs are recruiting young people through chat groups and encrypted devices for serious crimes and relatively small pay. Fiona Willan, ABC News, Sydney.
Qantas is the latest Australian company to be targeted in a major cyber attack. It joins the likes of Medibank and Optus in failing to protect customer information. The airline says a significant proportion of the data of 6 million customers has been stolen.
Australia's biggest airline targeted by a major cyber attack. Passenger details now presumably in criminal hands.
That's pretty concerning. We have been waiting to hear if our details have been breached or not.
On Monday, Qantas detected unusual activity on a third-party platform used by its contact centre in Manila. That platform holds the records of 6 million customers, including names, email addresses, phone numbers, birth dates and frequent flyer numbers. But the airline said it doesn't hold credit card details, personal financial information or passport details, and frequent flyer accounts haven't been compromised.
I've said this to Qantas, I've said this to all the businesses. Outsourcing, you can't outsource your cybersecurity obligations.
This type of personal information can be exploited in many different ways. Phishing attacks, identity theft.
Cybercrime is Australia's fastest growing crime.
The cybersecurity firm called in by Qantas to investigate the hack has told ABC News the incident has all the hallmarks of the so-called scattered spider hacker group. Last month, the FBI warned the group was expanding its targeting to include the airline sector.
The attack probably was facilitated by getting information from people and tricking them. Probably the entry point wasn't what we'd think of as a sophisticated technical attack.
CEO Vanessa Hudson was unavailable for interview, nor would the airline put any other spokesperson up.
At least get up and say something, let the people know.
Yeah, well, why do you think that?
Well, they're in charge. It's their job. It's their responsibility.
Another big corporate failing its customers. Rihanna Whitson, ABC News.
A third person has been charged in relation to the alleged murder of Queensland teenager Phoebe Bishop. 30-year-old Kieran Daniel Mittelhauser was last night charged with 2 counts of accessory after the fact to murder. The 17-year-old disappeared on the 15th of May from the Bundaberg region. Weeks later, her roommates James Wood and Tanika Bromley were charged with her murder. The teenager's body was later found in bushland. Police will allege Mr Mittelhauser used Ms Bishop's mobile phone to interfere with their investigation. An Australian man has allegedly been caught with 60 kilograms of cocaine in a Papua New Guinean hotel. The 45-year-old man from New South Wales was arrested at a hotel in Port Moresby. The man is being held in custody and is facing serious drug trafficking charges. PNG police say they hope the arrest is a warning to anyone who thinks they can get away with trafficking drugs to their country. The ABC understands the man caught the flight from Cairns to Port Moresby in June. The Foreign Minister has pressed the Trump administration on tariffs and the AUKUS Pact in the wake of a high-profile diplomatic gathering in Washington, D.C. The meeting coming as Fiji's Prime Minister delivered a major speech in Canberra where he dealt a blow to China's military ambitions in the Pacific.
Friends and allies at a distance. Penny Wong joining her Indian and Japanese counterparts in a very different Washington.
It has never been more important for us to harness our collective strength for peace, for stability, for prosperity.
All three of the other Quad partners are grappling with a transactional and uncompromising White House, but insist they can still find common cause. Today, bolstering cooperation on maritime security and critical minerals.
That's the hope for this partnership. That's why it's so important to host it here today.
But some things have shifted. The Foreign Minister pressing Australia's case on tariffs and the review of the AUKUS Pact.
We understand that President Trump has a different view of how America is to be in the world.
The Secretary of State expressing regret that Donald Trump left the G7 in Canada early and missed his meeting with Anthony Albanese. But the first face-to-face sit-down between Prime Minister and President remains elusive.
We agree that we will reschedule this meeting. We both look forward to the leaders' meeting.
Penny Wong will come home empty-handed. That's not what we needed right now.
The vast uncertainty over America's trajectory under Donald Trump means that the government is now looking at building even closer links with the region. Australia's now locked in a contest for influence in the Pacific with China. And today, one of the Pacific's most prominent leaders, Fiji's Prime Minister Sitiveni Rabuka, gave a closely watched speech here in Canberra. The Prime Minister doesn't share Australia's anxieties about Beijing's ambitions.
I do not believe that China would even need a base in the Pacific. They have proven that they do not need a base outside China.
But if he's wrong, then his message is crystal clear.
Do you believe the region should resist it if they wanted one?
If they want to come, who would welcome them? Not Fiji.
And that declaration will draw attention. Stephen Jedgetts, ABC News, Canberra.
US President Donald Trump says Israel has agreed on terms for a 60-day ceasefire in Gaza and has warned Hamas to accept the deal before conditions worsen. The news came as Israel issued new orders to evacuate while its planes and tanks struck heavily in the north and south of the Strip. Gazan health authorities say at least 112 Palestinians have been killed in the past 24 hours. In a post on social media, the US president said mediators Qatar and Egypt would deliver this final proposal to Hamas. A jury in New York has reached a verdict on 4 of the 5 charges against Sean Diddy Combs, but is deadlocked on the most serious one. The jury sent a note saying it was unable to reach a unanimous verdict on the racketeering conspiracy charge as there were unpersuadable views on both sides. Prosecutors, Combs' defence team and the judge agreed that after just 2 days, it was too early to give up and the jury was told to continue deliberating. The partial verdict, which remains under wraps, comes after a 7-week trial in which 2 of the music mogul's former girlfriends testified that he'd physically and sexually abused them. A shark has been spotted near a far north coast beach days after a teenager was seriously injured in an attack. A bull shark, approximately 2 metres long, was captured by drone on Tuesday, swimming near Cabarita Beach. It comes after a 16-year-old boy was bitten at the beach on Sunday. It's unknown what type of shark attacked the teenager. Cabarita Beach remains closed. Time for a look at finance now. Here's Alan Kohler.
Well, the market has been flirting with the February record for about a month, but today it finally got there, thanks to spirited buying of mining companies and retailers. Qantas was down more than 4% at one stage as a result of being hacked, but it caught some buying this afternoon. Now, part of the reason for the optimism among investors would be that even though the US market closed slightly lower last night, there was a golden cross on the charts. Now, that's where the 50-day moving average goes above the 200-day moving average. A mystical sign of strong momentum. It doesn't happen very often. The last time was 2 years ago, and it's usually, but not always, a precursor to more rises. The US Senate passed the One Big Beautiful Bill last night, 51-50, adding somewhere between $3 and $5 trillion to government debt. Now, irresponsible budgeting usually brings out bond vigilantes, which is the name given to investors who sell government bonds, that is debt securities, in response, and drive up the interest rate on them. Last night, the interest rate barely moved. The vigilantes were a no-show, which might be partly due to the pressure that President Trump is putting on the Federal Reserve to lower interest rates. Last night he sent a handwritten note to the chairman telling him to cut the policy rate to 1%. Trump gets to appoint a new chairman pretty soon, so investors think maybe it'll happen. Oil jumped more than 1% on commodity markets and the Aussie dollar was steady just below 66 US cents. Retail sales increased 0.2% in May, which was less than half what was expected, but it would be worse without immigration. Per capita shopping has just arrived back at zero, having been negative for 3 years. And that's finance.
To sport now, and Sydney ruckman Brodie Grundy has played down concerns over the condition of the SCG surface ahead of the Swans clash with Fremantle on Sunday. The surface has been labelled unsafe by Dockers coach Justin Longmuir, with several players slipping over during last Friday's game. The turf has struggled to recover from a concert in April, with curators also set to be challenged by this week's heavy rain. Alex de Minaur has shrugged off a recent form slump to record a convincing win in the first round at Wimbledon. De Minaur won in straight sets.
Alex de Minaur admitted that he was mentally fried after an early exit at the French Open, but he's arrived at Wimbledon with a spring in his step.
How good is that again?
The 11th seed realised he needed to focus less on results and more on enjoying the journey.
Refreshed and rejuvenated.
After Paris, it was about having a little reset, a little chat to myself in the mirror and saying, look, this is not sustainable.
Following a disastrous day one, the Australian players rallied. Rinky Hijikata cruised into the second round and Alexander Vukic won in 4 sets. Australia's Daria Kasatkina was coming off 3 first-round losses and vomited before her match.
Just right there, entering the court. So, yeah, I was a little nervous before the match.
The 16th seed's stomach settled and she defeated Colombia's Emiliana Arengo 7-5, 6-3. The weather was hot again, as was the form of Ukrainian Diana Yastremska as she shocked the French Open champion Coco Gauff.
It was a great match today. I was really on fire. I have even a fire on my nails.
On a day of upsets, the 3rd seed Jessica Pegula was another casualty.
It is the victory of Elizaveta Cacciaretto's life.
As it was for Frenchman Arthur Rinderknecht, who defeated world number 3 Alexander Zverev. Duncan Huntsdale, ABC News.
Let's take a look at the weather now. And Tom, one final burst of wind and rain tonight.
Nick, there's even the chance of a thunderstorm along the coastal fringe south of Foster. And in the past hour, still seeing gusts up to 90 kilometres per hour along the south coast. But this afternoon, a preview of what's ahead. A brief pocket of sunshine and just the glimpse of a rainbow in Sydney. Last night, though, torrential rain as the primary low peaked in intensity. Now 157 millimetres was their heaviest July fall in 121 years. Narooma 140 millimetres was a July record. Sydney picked up anything from 25 to 101 millimetres to 9 a.m. Today was mostly cloudy and cool. After a low of 10, we reached 18 in the city, and that was 1 above the average. Now, on the radar tonight, well, you can see that rainfall has returned. Kiama's had another 14 millimetres since 9 a.m. and Mossvale 18 millimetres. Now, the maximums today, Sydney 18, but we did only hit 15 degrees in Terry Hills and we climbed to 19 degrees in the west, 8 degrees at Mount Boyce. Last night was frosty in the far west and mild on the coast due to the wind and the cloud. It was snowy on the higher parts of the central and northern ranges, yet another fall blanketing the Barrington tops. Today's highs were warm for winter in the south and cold in the north. Armidale only reached 7. On the satellite, thick cloud is spinning around our complex low, which is impacting the weather from southern Queensland right down to Tasmania. Now, on the chart tomorrow, the low will finally start moving away from the coast and that will allow severe weather to ease. Around the country, showers easing in Melbourne, 14, showers and a possible storm in Perth. Now, for the northeast tomorrow, winds slowly easing. The chance of early showers for the south and along the ranges. It will be a sunny day across the north. For the southeast, still a high chance of showers for the south coast and the southern ranges, falling a snow above 1,400 metres. Just a slight risk of a shower further north. Now to the west, an early shower is possible on the southwest slopes. It's looking dry elsewhere, highs in the mid-teens. On the waters, very dangerous conditions, strong to gale force winds, seas to 4 metres. For Sydney, Windy with rain tonight, possible storm, easing to showers by the morning, which will mostly clear. Winds up to 30 kilometres per hour, higher gusts on the coast, 12 to 18 in the city, 17 to 19 for remaining suburbs. The sun will rise at 7 a.m. and ahead, well, we're looking at sunshine returning Friday, a top of 18 to 19, then the chance of light showers on Saturday and Sunday. Nick.
Thanks, Tom. And that's all from ABC News for now. Sarah Ferguson is here now with 7:30.